All right, before we're joined by Tim Graham, Director of the Media Analysis at the Media Research Center and Executive Editor at newsbusters.org, let's watch this.
I'm proud that journalists are standing up, individually, speaking up in ways that we rarely see. They're not anti-Trump, they're pro-democracy. Julie Pace, writing for the AP today, says Trump's claims about vote rigging made without evidence undercuts the essence of American democracy. Ashley Parker, writing for the New York Times, says we haven't seen a candidate from one of the two major parties try to cast doubt on the entire democratic process and system of government since the brink of the Civil War.
All right, I'm so glad that Brian Stelter feels that these journalists, quote unquote, are just protecting democracy and going after Trump. Tim Graham is with us. Tim, welcome aboard, my friend. Here's a guy who does something called Reliable Sources on CNN. I've been on that show, who's been vehemently anti-Trump, vehemently pro-Hillary, and now he's defending, and he used the word journalists, for throwing away objectivity, but it's for the protection of democracy.
Well, I was just curious about, didn't Al Gore basically suggest that a government was corruptly changing the election results in Florida in 2000?
I seem to recall something along those lines, possibly. Yeah.
And then, of course, what we're looking at today here was in 2004, after the election, a certain journalist named Keith Olbermann suggested that the vote was rigged.
Yeah. You find people on the left and in the media today who will tell you, in their opinion, that George W. Bush was an illegitimate president. So, I mean, you know, what are you going to do? They try to deny it. But Brian Stelter had another on the hit parade. Let's watch this one.
We need to have the temperature come down on all sides right now. Unfortunately, Donald Trump is the lead in terms of raising the temperature at this moment in time.
He was talking about the bombing of the Republican headquarters in North Carolina. And at that point, he claimed nobody knew who did it or any inkling, although The Hill, I think, had already published a report, with the Nazi, anti-Republican Nazi graffiti. But that aside, again, it's a Republican headquarters. We know it was bombed, and he's blaming Donald Trump's rhetoric and heating up the situation. Just like when Donald Trump had the stage rushed and someone rushed him, they blame Donald Trump's rhetoric. When people get beaten up outside of Donald Trump events, they blame Donald Trump's rhetoric.
This they do. Well, I mean, this is where they just have an automatic knee-jerk reflex, which is we all know that Trump has language that's over the top that really upsets liberals. So anytime somebody reacts to Trump, somehow it's his fault. Obviously, if we reversed parties, it would be blaming the victim.
Yeah,
but not when Trump's running.
It's outrageous. So much has been learned from these emails, Tim, that I know this is not your realm, but I wish Donald Trump would stop with the elections fixed and start just reading from these emails. And here's one that's wonderful. Let's put this up. You know Glenn Thrush, Politico, been around forever. He wrote an email to John Podesta, basically wanting to know if, he says, because I have become a hack, I will send you the whole section that pertains to you. Please don't share or tell anyone I did this. Tell me if I effed up anything. And Podesta writes back, no problems here. He wrote a story. He sent it to Podesta for approval, says, don't tell anyone. I'm a hack. Is there anything more self-incriminating?
Well, this is what all of these WikiLeaks show, is a bunch of these reporters that when they communicate with the Hillary Clinton campaign, they really sound like friends. They really sound like buddies. They really sound like people who are trying to help. They sound like the help. The email where Mark Leibovich of the New York Times is trying to decide which quote about Hillary seeing a moose was the best one. And she says, don't mention Sarah Palin. Oh, I won't. It's kind of comical just to what degree where the Clinton aide, Jennifer Palmieri, says to Leibovich, sorry, I'm on an iPhone. I can't cut and paste it.
And this is what Brian Stelter is grateful for, that these quote-unquote journalists are trying to save our democracy by doing this. This is insanity. But it doesn't stop there, as you know, Tim. Edward Isaac Dovery, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, I'm probably not, White House correspondent for, again, Politico. Wow, I was alerted to this story, and then I went on his Twitter. He is an unabashed Republican basher. And he's the White House correspondent for Politico, which, don't they pretend at least that they're a news organization? So here's what he put out when a story broke that Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, was talking to investors about a possible Trump network. It's so nice Jared Kushner's grandparents survived the Holocaust so he could look into a new TV network that would cater in part to Nazis. How does Politico reconcile this?
Look, it's in the same realm as making coke snorting jokes at the White House briefing. I mean, this is their idea of humor. And to me, that's like Trump's idea of what's funny about, what stars can get away with. They decide what's outrageous. They decide what is disqualifying in a president. And they don't somehow decide what's disqualifying in a journalist.
It's outrageous. It really is. Tim, keep up the good fight at the Media Research Center. And, of course, everybody check out newsbusters.org as well. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right, folks, I want your phone calls because the panel's coming up next. And we love phone calls for the panel. 877-NEWSMAX, 877-639-7629. Brent Badowski, who has been, some will say, revealed in some of these hacked emails or WikiLeaks email dumps. He sent some emails. We'll talk about it with him. And the great Tom Borelli will be here as well. 877-NEWSMAX, because we want to hear from you.